Hi Mzansi, welcome back to Farmers Inside Track, proudly brought to you by Food for Mzansi. My name is Patricia Tembo and welcome to episode 543. So in today's episode, we are looking at how you can go from a producer to an agripreneur. Of course, farming is a business, so this episode is set to be both practical and informative as we welcome Stephen Francis, who is a CEO and founder of Franchising Made Easy. And he will go into how farmers can go beyond production to actually becoming successful agripreneurs. Stephen Francis, welcome to Farmers Inside Track. We are very pleased to have you on today's episode.
Thank you, Patricia, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in the podcast.
So, Stephen Francis, you are the CEO and founder at Franchising Made Easy. You know, from previous conversations we've had, you do work closely with farmers and in their agribusiness management. But for our listeners who haven't heard of you or the company that you are running, maybe explain more about the role that you play in this sector.
Just to give you a little background, Franchising Made Easy started in 2016, where we saw a need to start franchising among the previously disadvantaged community to enhance their growth within the franchise space. So in franchising, we work across all sectors. And one of the sectors that you also work is the agri space. So in the agribusiness space, we saw an opportunity to help entrepreneurs, especially in the space of providing mentorship skills, helping them to grow their businesses, for them to understand that a farmer is an entrepreneur by nature as well. And they need to understand entrepreneurship. They need to understand why it's important to have a mentor to guide them along to grow their businesses from a small scale holding to commercial farming in the future.
Yeah, it does sound like you cover quite a lot, and our farmers are in for gathering very valuable insights from you today. We are going to be looking at agripreneurship and the factors that would lead a farmer to being a successful entrepreneur. But what does entrepreneurship mean in the context of farming today from your experience? And you've been working with farmers, as you mentioned. What does that look like today?
In a depressed economy like South Africa, we find that agriculture sector is a cornerstone of the national food security and economic stability. And an efficient production of livestock, grain, and vegetable relies on a strategic operations planning, cost-effective resource use, and robust farm management. So our company provides farm training focusing on technical skills and farm management, as well as the use of technology innovation to build capacity within the emerging farmer or small-scale holders to develop their skills in progress to become commercial farmers for the future, which we believe we aligned our strategy to what the National Department of Agriculture aligns itself for South Africa for emerging farmers. Farmer technical skills, we provide skills to help a farmer to understand the importance of does he want to do farming, because we do a diagnostic assessment to establish whether the farmer should be focusing predominantly on, should we say, hydroponic farming or tent and tunnel or soil farming. And we work directly with ARC to establish the soil testing evaluation. A lot of technical skills are initially starting to help the farmer understand his positioning and also giving him the skill set to establish where his passion and drive is. Or is the passion on focusing strongly on cattle farming or livestock, which includes poultry, piggery, and also cattle farming, or does he want to focus on possibly grain farming? These are opportunities and the skill set that we have within our organization to help emerging farmers. Added to that, we also provide the management side of farming. And one of the areas of weaknesses that we identified by working with a large number of small-scale farmers is the lack of farm management. And under farm management, we focus on strongly setting up the strategic plan of the business, understanding the importance of having a sound business plan, looking at the procurement of the value chain and how that operates. The training is covered in that area. Looking at from a procurement point, we look at also networking with other farmers in the area, access to market, access to funding. We also look at on the financial side, we look at financial discipline, managing the business profit and loss or management account, annual financials, helping them to understand taxations, helping them to also understand and appreciate the importance of benefiting rebates from SARS for emerging farmers. So all that is covered in the training. We also do assessments and help them along. And then lastly, we also focus on providing a mentorship for farmers for at least 24 months to get them more stable in their farming.
When it comes to entrepreneurship, a farmer has to be very intentional in the way that they approach their business, of course. And I think that takes us into the next question and how farmers can begin to see themselves not only as producers, but as business owners and innovators. Where's the starting point of a farmer to actually see themselves as a business?
Initially, we expect a farmer to have his own farm. And if he doesn't, he can possibly lease a farm to the state for a 30-year plan through the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform. We do help farmers to follow through an application process with the department. And at the same time, we also guide them along on the application process. We help them through the process to ensure that. And we also help them with the Global Gap application process to guide them along on all the process and also be fully compliant in all areas of the different farming business that they're focusing on. So as I mentioned, the strategic plan and market orientation is the foundation. We look at risk assessment. We also help farmers to understand the importance of global change. We also help them to understand pest control, how to be run a successful farming business for success. Access to market, we have partnered with a lot of potential suppliers that are keen to buy produce from South Africa, and they are based in the sub-Saharan region. So for small farmers who cannot provide 20-ton tomatoes, for example, we get the smaller farmers to come as what we call like a crowd farming system, where the neighboring farmers come together and raise the 20 tons of tomato. And based on the number of produce per farmer on quantity, we would then sell the produce to the guys and they get their portion of payments based on the appropriation of what they produce in contributing towards the 20 tons of farm produce.
You touched now on market opportunities. What steps can a farmer take to identify new business opportunities within their current operation? What are the steps that a farmer would take?
The most important thing is to help farmers to understand who the market is going to be, what are the produce. Many of the farmers tend to just plant or produce and then you realize they cannot sell the product or cannot attract access to market. So it's always important for them, firstly, to access who the market is going to be, who the target market they're focusing on, and then plan their produce or production in that direction. By doing so, we will then expect them to, like, for example, if the customer wants spinach in large quantity, because the turnaround on spinach is quicker, cash flow can strengthen in the bank account, so they should be planting more spinach to target those customers, which is a very, very important element. So it's important for them to understand who the market is and how they're going to sell this pricing. Also, when they come to pricing, they shouldn't be afraid to put a price to their product, and they can always use SAFEX as the daily guideline price to what the market trends are. We also, part of our training, provide confidence and create confidence in the entrepreneur. Teach him how to negotiate pricing. Look at their branding and the packaging of the produce, which is very important that it enhances their brand for the future. Ensure that the produce is aligned to what the customer wants. I'll give you an example. If you look at many of the farmers that we work with that sell the produce to Woolworths stores, Woolworths look for organic products, firstly, one. Their procurement processes are very stringent, and we work with the farmers to meet that opportunity with Woolworths. Woolworths buy at a higher price and obviously sell at a higher price to consumers like you and I. So setting up those disciplines, building capacity, building confidence is all the cover during the training program under the farm management structure as well. So part of it is also allowing them to have personal growth in themselves and building that confidence and capability and capacity. At the same time, also building synergy and relationships, not only with suppliers, not only with potential customers, but also with neighboring farmers within their community where they're farming. So this actually strengthens the relationships and also have availability of produce all the time. So in a community, for example, why should all the farmers do spinach, for example? They should not. They should be selective and say, now that we have this access to market system in place, farmer A can do spinach, farmer B can do tomatoes, farmer 3 can do peppers, or whatever the needs of the market is at that point in time. So collectively, you can see that these produce can get sold out much quicker. Looking at the local state markets like the Pretoria market, the market downtown in Johannesburg, these could also be a target market where they can sell their produce to as well.
And you mentioned earlier this how farmers can look at SAFAX for pricing. Maybe could you expand on that a little bit more, what that term is? So just for our farmers who are listening who maybe have not heard of that.
SAFAX is part of a model that is actually designed and tracked by the Department of Agriculture, working with the market trends of produce and how the pricing is based on quantity, and it's a quantity versus quality. Trends and all these things are worked out and planned out, and then government comes up and say, what are the biggest demand and supply? And that's how they actually work out their pricing structures. We can provide more technical information on that, as part of our write-up, which becomes much more meaningful. I just want to just give a broad outlook to say they could price them according to what SAFAX trends are, what the market trends are.
And, looking at diversification, how that is a form of risk management, and it also just adds to a farming business being sustainable. Part of that, a way of diversifying is value addition to products or to the produce. What are foundational steps you would recommend to a farmer in adding value to their produce or products?
Let's take vegetable farming as an example. In vegetable farming, there are certain technical skills that are needed. The rotation of the soil, for example. You cannot plant the produce more than twice in the same soil area. So you got to be rotating the soil to ensure that the soil stays healthy for different types of products. For example, if you're planting onion now, onion gets ready in 90 days, ready for market. When you rotate the soil in the same area, you should be planting something else like peppers. And it's also important for farmers to understand, especially the emerging farmers, because their objective is to create wealth. And if they're creating wealth in the short term to strengthen the cash flow of their business, they should be looking at fast-moving produce. Example, that if they plant peppers, the smaller peppers, they can actually have an harvest around about between 30 days. So every 30-day cycle, they're harvesting peppers ready for market, right? And also they can have their funds available in the bank account much sooner. So they must be smart enough to look at opportunities of generating cash as quick as possible. If you're going to be planting cabbage, everybody likes to do cabbage because they think the pricing is good and etc. But there is a lot of risk attached to it. But if you have the rot dust, which they call the black dust, that actually tends to get onto the cabbage, possibly 80 days and the 10 days left for that, now you've got an entire batch that has to be written off or damaged. Or you take out the outside leaf, the cabbage gets smaller, you sell it at a smaller price, and then again, not appreciated in the market space. Again, there's a challenge here. So it's important that you say that if I'm going to be planting cabbage, because that's what the market demands, then I must make sure it's done under tents and tunnels. And then it's also, it's been taken care through pesticide doing that to protect the cabbage from getting spoiled or damaged during the process.
A point that you touched on there is that availability, having cash flow, and that being an important aspect to adding value to products as well. I think you mentioned the fast-moving produce, giving an example of pepper, cabbage. So yeah, I'm just thinking when it comes to value addition in diversifying, I'm not sure if I didn't catch what you were saying, but in terms of the value addition part, I suppose it goes into processing, if that is an avenue that you would recommend farmers to look into.
Definitely, we encourage farmers to basically ensure that in every of their farm they have a structured pack house. Branding of the packaging is important because they want to announce their farm name, their brand, and etc. So people associate brands, produce to the farmer, to the farming, the name of the farm, for example. So it's important that they actually have a proper, well-structured infrastructure of the farm. There are people that are well-trained to do the job, and not just call people and say, you seasonal staff, this is what you should be doing, and nobody's doing a quality check because customers are becoming more and more sophisticated. They're becoming more and more demanding. So when you get a big retail chain buying your produce, that produce must identify to that retail chain external customers, which is important for them. So the source of that produce that is landing to that retail market must be of very high quality to meet the standard that's required by the retailer. So it's important that the fundamental of training, even seasonal staff, is so important to ensure that the produce executed to the client is made of a very high standard. The branding, the alignment, the labeling, the packaging, it also creates this image of saying, I'm providing a professional service. Farmers need to understand that they are the CEOs of their own farms. And draw an analogy, a CEO of a big corporate, yes, with different responsibilities and etc., will ensure that they target and access the biggest market of their produce, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's IT, whether it's clothing or retail. So in the farmers need to see himself as a professional CEO, producing produce and products and selling it out there, and having a team that is well trained, well equipped to exceed the customer's expectation. And that is areas that we encourage farmers not to ignore, but to prioritize in their business for their success, with the objective of moving them from small scale holders to become commercial farmers. Commercial farmers give you a bigger opportunity to go into the export market. Now we know the violet peppers, the red peppers and the green peppers are very popular in South Korea. We know baby marrows are very popular in Mauritius, for example. Now, if they can do these and produce these products, the market is limitless. The market is endless for them in the export market as well.
The information you've shared now is quite valuable, and it can segue into further conversations when the time is right. But what are the main barriers holding back entrepreneurship in South African agriculture? And of course, you work with farmers and you've seen farmers go from small scale to commercial, but I'm pretty sure you've also seen farmers struggle get to the point of commercializing. So what are the main barriers that you've seen farmers facing when it comes to being entrepreneurs?
I think firstly, we find that many of the farm people that go into farming are go there for survival because of our depressed economy. People battle to get jobs. So they say, let me start farming. And I think it's important for them to establish, as I said earlier, is for them to actually have a business plan. They need to strategize in their mind. They need to have a vision. They must have a purpose of why they're doing what they want to do. So once they establish that in their mind, then they need to understand, what is farming business all about? Yeah. And what do I want to do? Do I want to do livestock? Do I want to do a vegetable or grain? And looking at that, I need to drill a little deeper to understand the challenges within those spaces. Once I've done all that, now I'm structured to go where I want to go. So the challenges that we find predominantly in South Africa that's preventing progression for small-scale holders is access to land. Now, when I talk about extra land, it's not just only the land, it's the infrastructure. We look at irrigation system. We look at security. We look at fencing, farm implements, farm equipment. These are challenges that they face. Lack of funding or sometimes very limited funding that is provided by the state to support these small-scale farmers. And I think one of the great areas is the lack of training and the lack of skills. And that is one area that you find that the state is always using as an excuse not to provide funding in the form of building better infrastructure for these farms. Yeah. But they fail to realize that the state is also accountable to ensure that they provide skill training to enhance growth in the mindsets of these entrepreneurs or farmers. Equally so, providing structured mentorship, and just not mentorship based on, let's see how your farm is performing. The mentorship needs to be structured. There must be a diagnostic assessment provided on the farm. A action plan needs to be put into place. A strategy needs to be devised. This is where the mentor comes in and works with the farmer to develop all these opportunities. And when they start devising a structured mentor program that runs for at least 24 months, now there's an accountability for the farmer and there's an accountability for the mentor to make sure that what they've actually put into their goals for the duration of the mentor program is adhered at the end or exceeded, or the outcomes are superseded in the mentor program, and the business is just being progressive from month to month, from year to year, and moving from small scale to commercial farming. The opportunities within South Africa are limitless. I understand that, but we need partnership. We need private sector and public sector coming together and coming up with a strategy. We're finding that there is a lot of opportunities provided by private sector in many of these interventions of, farm or agribusiness. However, there is still a shortfall, and the shortfall is having the skilled mentors that can go out there and make a difference and put in turnaround strategies that can move businesses to grow into the growth path, to actually move the farms into that level. So mentorship becomes the fundamental catalyst for growth among this sector of farmers, which I think is extremely important. I know it's often said you can provide a child with the best school uniform. You can provide the child with all the textbooks and the technology. But if you don't have the school teacher in the classroom, it becomes meaningless. So, simple analogy, we need those mentors. And we need skilled mentors that can make that difference and make that impact in the farms. We have common challenges that everyone is common about, which is load shedding, electricity challenges. This is where in our sector and our company, we interact with many of the big corporates, and we create interventions with them. So on behalf of the small farmers that we work with, we get them to sponsor solar energy system. We get them to sponsor a pack house. We get them to sponsor, for example, refrigerated units as well. We also look at providing them with electricity issues, or boreholes where there's water issues, drainage system. We also work with some government departments for water rights in certain areas where there is opportunity. And unfortunately, we got to be perseverance with government to make sure they provide those water rights, because government at times can take much longer than anticipated. But once you start building a relationship with those government officials and they see the need, then therefore they tend to move a little faster.
I love that you've mentioned how important mentorship is. I suppose that is what leads into a mindset shift. What sort of mindset shift that is needed for farmers to actually thrive? And a huge part of that is mentorship, as you've mentioned. So I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to highlight that would benefit farmers in terms of their mindset in the agricultural economy that we're in.
From a mindset shift, like I mentioned, that when we do the diagnostic assessment on the farm and the farmer. We also understand the farmers, like doing a SWOT analysis to establish the strength of the farmer as an individual. Based on that, we identified sometimes common areas of a sense of fear to go out there. Am I going to produce? What's going to happen? The negativities. So in other words, they see more negativity. We transform the negative thoughts to them to more positive thoughts. And we actually shift the mindset program by looking at a paradigm shift for their purpose and their objective why they are in business. We transform their mindset by working with them mentally to unwind the negative thoughts when it comes to farming, and then transform those thoughts through a psychological assessment that we also provide, where they can understand their weaknesses and shift their mindset to become more positive thinkers, to become entrepreneurs for success, to become leaders in their own businesses, and then become leaders in their own communities. For them to understand the challenges of, when you want to do a paradigm shift, it's also important to highlight the challenges that the entrepreneur needs to understand in a farming business. For example, they need to understand there's climate change, weather conditions, cash flow. They need to understand stock depth, security, building proper infrastructure, financial management. Like we always teach them under financial management, do not keep all your money into your business bank account. Go to your same bank that you bank with, and don't go to any of these other people that talk about we can give you 20%. Work with your same bank. If you're banking with a bank, tell them to move a portion of the money to a 32-day notice or a short or a medium term interest-bearing account, or move it into some investment portfolio. So when the need arises for emergency funding, there'll always be funds available. The relationship is strengthened with the bank. The bank is willing to support you in these times of emergency. So those are fundamental things that we help the entrepreneur through this mindset shift, because the mindset shift is also impacted through cash flow in the business. But if they say, we have a lot of money in our bank account, but it's not bearing any interest, that can also create a negative thought in the end. I'm now stuck. If I invested my money correctly through the mental guidance, if I put my money into different grow interest-bearing portfolios, I would be able to grow my business even more further and not get into a situation like this that's causing me stress, causing me fear, anxiety, anxiousness. So through our training program, when we train them on organizational behaviors, one of the modules that we train them on, we teach them about mindset shift, how to have a stable mindset in business, how to have a robust mindset, how to have a mindset for growth, how to have a mindset for success, how to have a mindset to actually build confidence, and even go and meet with the bigger procurement officers in the big chain stores, for example, because you want to promote your product. So it's about skill building as well. So as I mentioned earlier, the personal development and adaptation to the economy, to the markets, is one of the key things that we provide through the mentorship program, because mentorship to me is a practical application. I learned the theory, I guide you along, but I want to see a practical application out there. I can't talk about branding and the importance of branding, but not taking you into the pack house and teaching you how you should pack, how you should put your branding together and look at your different target markets. What are the requirements and how do they want their produce to be presented into the supermarkets or the food and market shelves and etc. If you're looking at cattle farming, we make sure the cattle are staying healthy. The medication, the salt leaks are available. And the important thing with cattle is the more you get them healthy, the more money you make when you sell them. Try not to take the cattle to an abattoir frequently, because there's a bargaining that goes on at an abattoir. But if you take them as structured customers, where you can sell them as young winners at a higher price, right? To people that then nurtures them to take the cattle to a more mature level, that's a market that we was working very well. We did a pilot test about 2 years ago with a piggery farm. And the piggery farm the young lady was waiting for it to reach a max of 600 kilograms and then start selling them at a bigger price. And it was taking much long because animal feed in piggery is very expensive. Water is expensive for them to survive. And then when we changed the portal to say, when the piglets are just about 30 days or 28 days old, you start selling them to other pig farmers that generate this. We were able to sell the pigs faster, improve the cash flow of the business, and within 6 months, that business turned around for great success by just doing that. So you're actually doing a breeding exercise and selling it at that piglet level at a higher price to go out. Because when the pigs are gone at a bigger weight, there's almost about 40% of that is actually fat. And people tend to withdraw because there's fat in how much pork meat am I getting out of this. So it always become a challenge. But when you sell them at a young age that are healthy, then you get a better price for that. So that case study that we worked with the entrepreneur from Nigel here in Joburg has produced an outstanding results, and she's still going in that direction and still making more money, and was ever so grateful of our intervention in her business.
Thank you so much. And we have to wrap that up here, but you've shared already very insightful information. I'm pretty sure farmers who are listening would want to find ways to reach out to you. How would they do that?
The farmers can reach out to us onto our website, which is www.franchisingmadeeasy.co.za, or they can contact me via email, which is Stephen with a STEVEN @franchisingmadeeasy.co.za, or our mobile number, which is 079-733-0202 again. Thank you for giving us the opportunity. And once again, we are willing to support and work with the community as well.
Thank you so much to Stephen Francis. And for more information on this topic we discussed today, you can definitely visit www.foodformzanzi.co.za. And that brings us to the end of this episode. Remember to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. And that is all from myself, Patricia Tembo, our technical producer, Megan van der Vent, and the rest of #Team Food for Mzansi. Thank you for listening and keep growing with us.